it's very defined on the nose. You either on the left side or the right side. Here in Brazil, there's so many, the mixing has been going on for over 100 years. So what's white and black is a little bit more blurred, I feel here. Like, because I told Erica before, in America, she would be considered Latina, you know, but here
Yeah,
she,
a white Latina. So,
yeah,
and that is a distinction. So you got like Dominicans, you've got Puerto Ricans. They're gonna be. And here's the thing: America's more subtle with our race. America's a sophisticated, well-oiled machine, much more so. See, the thing about other countries, the stuff is direct because the stakes are bigger. America, because we have social programs and stuff. Like, for example, one of the things that African Americans are really annoyed by, and quite frankly, a lot of Americans, if we let a lot of immigrants in the country, like they're just letting them just come through. I'm not against immigration per se at all, but you're just letting them flood into the country. And then what happens is they are magically dumping them in the cities where we live, black people live. Now, America's a big country. It's a lot of space. For instance, when Arabs were coming over here, they put them in Michigan, you know, and to the point where they control a lot of cities in Michigan and stuff like that. But magically, all these people are coming into cities where black people are like heavily populated. And there's a lot of dynamics as to why that is and they're giving them a lot of like, they're giving them free money. I mean, a lot of free money. Like they've closed schools down for African Americans, and then they're using these facilities that we didn't have no money for. Now they're using them to house certain folks. It's certain stuff that they lied to us and said we could do this years ago, and then now they're using the money for that, and then we're paying tax dollars for that, you know. And they're not doing it out of the kindness in their own heart. They're doing it to undermine our voting power. So America does stuff, you know. America, like the parties are very sophisticated in how they do stuff to where if you speak on it, you start to look bad, even though, you know. And so and even with the immigration thing, it's not the immigration per se, but this is like a whole bunch of people coming in at the same time. It's not, it's an overwhelming amount. And so they do it for that purpose. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, America's well, so things are subtle. So like, if you were in the United States, I'm gonna just be real with it. If you're in the United States, the way it is looked at is you're gonna be considered a person of color, but at the same time, like how a police officer might deal with you or something, they're gonna see a white person. So their instincts are not gonna kick in, and you're a woman too, so they're not gonna pop off on you unless you are just wilding out with the cops. You know, you can, and I mean, you can even yell and cry and do what you want to do, and they won't have that same threat level like a dude. And I understand that absolutely. So you might not see it when you come in the U.S. This is why when a lot of immigrants come to the United States, they have this thing. Even black immigrants will come in here and be like, "Oh, America's not that bad. You blacks just don't do what you're supposed to do." And then they get what we call in America, we call it a nigga wake up call, in which they find out they're black. And as far as Brazilians, well, it just depends. But Erica for the most part would be considered white. White here, yeah. Because here's my thing that I always look. If you're in Brazil and you're a certain skin tone, chances are, unless you're going to be in Miami or LA, you're probably going to have a lighter skin tone.
Yeah, because the sun is out every day.
So if you go to New York or Chicago, yeah. So unless you're in the sunny places, you're gonna have a lighter skin tone. So if you look white there, then yeah, you're gonna look white.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, she'll be like pale, right? You ever like not been in the sun for like a month or no?
No.
Okay, but I have a feeling because look at now. Like we were at the beach. How long ago?
I've been in an age. I've learned that in the Philippines. So yeah, like if you think of people that were like my skin tone, and I can go a little bit darker, but this is like the lightest I get. But people my skin tone, they come over in the United States. Oh yeah, they go. So that's another thing. But it's not. It's subtle. It's subtle. Like we're subtle about it. It's not as direct. It's like what you probably do in Brazil. Like it's like direct disrespect. that if you could deal with. Versus here, it's gonna be a little bit more subtle. It just is. They're very good about that. And so it make you look like you're crazy for saying something. That's why black men are not always disrespected, but you just deal with it. Because if you say something, they just gonna act like, you're black and you're angry. Oh, And so
Yeah, and like I told you before, that video that you sent me, the 8 at the table, and she saw it, and she was actually shocked at what. Let's say it again.
I mean, I also did see. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like them women, you get them comfortable, they'll tell the truth, and that's not. And yeah, that's one video, obviously. But we got hundreds, man. It ain't even just the videos. Like this is stuff that's reflected. We've had these conversations with people in real time. Like the thing is, they don't not like people from not from the United States. But what happens is, as a woman, if you become a sexual threat, that's what you have to understand. You're a threat to resources. So if dudes say, "Hey, I believe in equality, but I'm not getting no equality. I do everything." Okay, let me go talk to another chick that their idea of feminism is this, and this. And I'm like, sure, shoot, I can do all of that in spades. You don't want me to hit you. You want me to actually care about what you have to say, and you're actually saying something that's worth saying. I have no problem with that, because how they were socialized. Now you're a sexual threat. That's the problem. You're a sexual threat. You're a threat to taking resources. You're a threat to their power, because they can't use sex on men, and that's where that comes from.
Yeah, so I was trying to explain to her
It
like,
said the dirty foot. Is it the dirty foot video?
yeah, with the
Yeah, yeah, and they were usually, and ironically, even with black women, they're mainly talking about black women. That's why I be tripping. I'm like, they wouldn't even be talking about women like Erica. They be talking about women that look like them.
like the
That's the
Afro
crazy.
Brazilians, Afro Brazilians.
Yeah, I'm like, these women look up to you. They shouldn't, but they do, and that's what you saying. All right, wow. And I tell them, I hate that term. I tell them, if you're willing to call, and dudes will try to do it too, to try to appease our women. And I say, look, if you're gonna call somebody a dirty foot, don't get mad when a white person calls you a hard R, because it's the same thing. They don't like that, but whatever.
Yeah, I was just trying to tell her like, why? Because when I talk to some Brazilians, the first thing they'll say, "Why are you here?" And they're like, they can't fathom, like, why would you leave America to come here? Because a lot of them are trying to get there. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, I understand that perspective, absolutely. I mean, if I was you, I would tell them I'm tired of the cold. With New York, I want to be a city that's not gonna be cold. And Miami got a little bit too many STDs, but so yeah. So I mean, I'm in North Carolina. I appreciate where I'm at, but I don't necessarily believe in expatriation like you do, but I definitely believe in traveling overseas and stuff like that. But yeah, like that's what it is. It's just sexual threats, and that's another dynamic that doesn't get talked about. Like black men are a sexual threat to white men. Even though I don't know why, because we don't like the same women like that. To be honest with you, the women that black men typically gravitate to, white men don't want, and vice versa. But and that's where most racism comes from. Most racism is just about genetic preservation. And by the way, that was a woman that actually broke that ground. Shout out to Dr. Frances Quest Wilson, who basically did a lot of research and work on that. But it's genetics. That's why I don't like black men. That's why white men are more threatened by black men versus other races of men. It's because the genetic threat that we supposedly pose. Now I'm more lighter, so I'm not going to trigger that threat level like Marty might, or maybe a dude that's 6'2", but that's where the racism comes from. And so they try to deny economic resources as a way of whittling down our population. Here's the funny thing. The more you depress a population, the more their women start to want to have kids. That's a primal response. the more your population actually operates. And this is also research. The more your population does well, like white people, and I'm talking mainly Anglos. That's what I'm talking about. Anglo-Saxons, Gauls, so your French, your British and Scots, your Nordics, the less their population grows.
Right.
Which is why they're dealing with what they're dealing with now. Because they're in pretty much a fourth industrial complex. And that's the irony of them depressing certain populations. Because Africa is populating more than anybody. Then Hispanics overall populating more than anybody because of history the Hispanic countries have dealt with. And white people are not.
And just a little note, Xanatos Clutch says, funny enough, I just came back from Paris, and the worst thing I experienced was the cold. The people were polite, though, and it's a fairly integrated / pro SYSBM. Shout out to Xanatos Clutch.
Yeah, appreciate Xanatos Clutch for coming. Once you get to France, but France's problem is the colonialization that it takes to get there. But I understand. But to be honest, to be fair to Clutch, I've heard, black women go to France and say they experience black privilege. I've heard that a few times.
They said they got black privilege?
That is, and they were dead serious. They were not playing. And I'm talking about people that lived. I'm talking about women that went and they live there now from America. So that's first one I thought they were playing, but I've heard a couple of women say that. They say they experience black privilege.
And Sir Pensive says, I have never been, but it seems like Brazil is significantly more racist than the U.S. No, I would say it's more classist. It just so happens that a lot of the black people don't have the money. So you kind of weave in and out of that. But if you have the money, it's two different Brazils. It is.
Yeah. And then let's be real. We've had opportunities that black people in Brazil haven't had. Because when you look at these wars and stuff like that, when you look at the economic juncture with World War II and stuff like that, that's another thing. They had so much work that had to be done. They had to let black men get involved in it. So that's why I don't do that dirty foot stuff. I don't do that because the thing is, that's the luck of the draw what country you come out of, man. It is. And I always check people on that. Like you can't control, what country you come in. And now granted, our ancestors, this country, America wouldn't be America without black men. Like without that cotton, America would not be America, and they can't get around that. But that being said, you don't sit there and deal with marginalized what people got to deal with in other countries. You're lucky to be in the United States. And this is also kind of why I don't like to hear a lot of women griping about certain stuff, because the thing is, these will be the same women, and regardless of race, that they'll go to other countries. Latin women are not as bad because Latin women usually have ties to the countries they come from, even if they're second or third generation, to a certain extent. But Asian women are not as bad on that front either. But like white women and black women, yeah, they'll go to Africa and just start talking shit to African women about African women, not just the men. But I get it. Oh man, y'all patriarchal, but they'll start popping off on the women too. And I'm not saying women are bad, but it's like it's just it's.
Xanatos Clutch comes back and says, and as far as being a sexual threat, I'll tell you that if you like the same group of women, the men will mark you as a public enemy. That was my experience in Japan, specifically with white men, which I got more heat from than even Asian men.
Yeah, I can see that. Xanatos has similar tastes. Yeah, that's what drives a lot of that. When it comes to racism and stuff, that's what drives a lot. Classism is more about controlling all the money. Racism is more the money and the kind of genetic lineage thing. And then the women, they're pawns in that. So what happens with classism, like in America, women are used as a buffer class because men are not going to be as violent. Men are not going to go through women like they will go through men. Like men will like when we were establishing these labor laws and stuff, men got violent with rich men or men that work for rich men, Like,
Yeah.
in order to keep laws, men are not going to get violent like that with women. So it puts us in this kind of Chinese finger trap. And so what they do is they elevate women, and they also know women like to spend money easier than men if they, promote certain stuff to them. So it's a reason why they do stuff. So feminism is as prominent. Not necessarily. I'm not saying there's not things women don't have to complain about, but what I am saying is it's prominent. It's under control, and it's not just men that control it. It's like men and like women that like elite women that kind of control the levers of what actually gets qualified as being able to have this moniker or not. And it's a class control mechanism. And how I see it deployed in other countries is usually that. That's not to say that women don't have their complaints, but what happens is, unfortunately, their complaints don't get solved. What they do is they pretend they're solving it as a way of dealing with another group in order to marginalize that group, and people don't have the foresight to see that.
Mm.
And that's where we are here. So, yeah.
Yeah. So any questions for Ed?
No, I'm good.
You good? All right. What about you, Ed? Any other questions for the Brazil side of things?
I mean, this has been a good like start conversation. I mean, like I said, I was gonna be honest and say, what I think. I don't, these topics are very important, which is why, I'm very candid on them. I can
Yeah.
always say what somebody wants to hear, but that's what
Yeah.
everybody else does.
I'm the same exact way, and we get into our little tussles from time to time because I say what's on my mind, and I kind of don't have a filter, you know. But like I said,
I
I
have,
get,
I have a filter. I mean, this is me with a filter. But again, like I said, what other like countries are different. Countries have different laws, different cultures. So as far as the United States, yeah, trust me, you wouldn't have the same complaints if you was in the United States, because people, yeah, which is why a lot of people want to come to the United States. But trust me, women will definitely have complaints in the United States when they leave out the United States. And that's a lot of times when women travel outside the United States is when they tend to complain less, because they start to appreciate what they do have in the United States culturally. Because when they see that men, like for instance, if a man approaches you and they don't want to, engage with him in that way, and they're very cordial about it, but they say, I have a boyfriend or I'm not interested. See, in other places, a woman might get popped for doing that. I've heard African women say that, where they have to be very careful how they reject a man, because they might, that's that, I guess, that violence you're talking about. But in America, yeah, if you do that no, you're not gonna be able to do that more than once, and that's gonna be dealt with, whether it's the law or somebody else, to the point where women can really disrespect men and really low key get away with it. Not saying a man should hit them, but dudes just have to eat that. So that it's kind of those nuances, but to each his own.
yeah. I wonder what country would be most similar to the states, because you have your passport, right? I'm trying to think outside of the U.S. because it's a headache to get inside the U.S. What country would she be able to visit that is very similar to the U.S.? If anybody, Canada, you'd be able to go to Canada? Yeah, Canada is a little bit more extreme than the U.S., right?
Canada is 40 million population. Canada has more socialism. Canada is like a very blend of America and Europe, but Canada is very similar culturally to the United States. The only difference would be Quebec, because Quebec is more French based.
Mm.
Great women. I've dated Quebec chick before. So, but the rest of it, Toronto and all of that, yeah, it would be very similar. It's just more socialism, and it's a smaller population, so they can kind of get away with that. Remember, Canada's oil-based, very large country, only 40 million. Canada has the same population as California.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy.
Just to give you scale. So they don't. But from the women, yeah, women definitely have it on lock in Canada for the most part. Yeah, a lot more so than even in the United States.
All right, so yeah, definitely, Because I'm going to Panama once that situation comes up to get the spot out there. I was thinking about us going up there, doing some streams and doing some content out there while I'm out there. But I don't know. I know Panama's on the U.S. dollar, but I don't know how similar to the U.S. the culture is there. It could be.
It's similar-ish. I mean, you could think of it as kind of like a colony of the United States. I'd probably say it's probably like Puerto Rico in that way, where it's its
Right.
own identity, but it has a lot of fun because you gotta remember the canal.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that'd be something because like you said, the purpose of traveling is to get a different perspective on just things in general, and the more people travel, like you said, sometimes when the women go out, like they go to these countries like Thailand, you see what's going on over there when the women get over there, and they can't, or even Dubai. When they go to Dubai, you can't really pop off the way you would in America, and they get jammed up. So when they come back to the States, I'm sure it's like, okay, maybe things are not as bad as I thought it was in the States as compared to another country
Yeah,
that's,
I'm a believer, and I'm a very big advocate on Black men traveling. I am an advocate of Black women traveling too. I think only about 20% of Americans even have a passport, and that's actually up from what it used to be. Only like 7% of African Americans have passports. So, and obviously America's a big country, so you have that as one reason. But we're also not socialized to really care, like really want to go to other places. We're
right,
socialized, the best things of everything is in America, and that's not true. Economically, I can understand that, but I'm talking about from a cultural standpoint. So oftentimes, again, a lot of times people use feminism as they basically use feminism on stuff that like is not feminist. And if you understand like what the waves are, it's like you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Like the women, like there was a time, like for instance, a 2.0 feminist would talk about how legally you could be the R word could happen if you were married. And that was like in the 80s. That was a big thing. So like we're way past like stuff like that. And to the point where even if you grab a chick's, ass, that's considered sexual, assault on the level of R. Now, me personally, if you grab a chick's ass and she punches you in the nose and breaks your nose, you eat that. That's what you get. And yeah, you should probably get hit with some kind of charge. But I'm like, you do that to get the free shot. That's my personal view. But I don't consider that an R word. To me, those are two completely different levels. So you can literally be put on a registry for grabbing the chick's ass. That's so, and it is what it is. I don't think you should just be going around doing that. But there's
right,
certain cultures that, like, if you come over here and you don't understand that, there's more patriarchal. It is what it is. But that's what I'm saying. So as far as the severity of the laws, like where we're at, the laws are pretty much where they need to be. To the point where when men weaponize those laws against other men in order to like take other men out through women, so it's just, like I said, I'm more, you treat people how you want to be treated. I'm more about this stuff needs to be equally yoked. And yeah, so
okay.
yeah.
All right. So definitely a dope stream. Any final statements?
No, I'm great.
All right. Ed, any final statements or anything you want to touch on?
Yeah, it's been a great candid conversation. I mean, we went longer than what I anticipated we would go,
Yeah.
and it's a great conversation. I mean, like I said, I'm the mild one. I'm the reasonable guy. Like Marty will tell you, I'm the reasonable one. There's a lot more folks, a lot more ruthless about this type of stuff than I am. I'm the type of person, if stuff isn't validating you, don't be here. And end up.